Hi, Vinnie. I just wanted to sort of, start the discussions on Infor and Infor's vertical strategy, but first by introducing myself. I'm Soma. I'm the president and CTO at Infor. My claim to fame is that I'm actually employee number one with Infor. So you could say I started with Infor or Infor started with me. So either way.
I didn't realize that. So first of all, it's great to see you. You're looking good. 2 years of the pandemic haven't been good to you.
Yeah. So pandemic in some ways was a blessing in disguise. I was traveling to 20 countries every year before that. So that kind of put a halt to that. So it is it's good from that point of view. And we all could figure out ways to virtually do things like we're doing right now, right? So that was probably long overdue. So yeah, pandemic has also actually from a professional standpoint accelerated cloud growth and technologies clearly a lever that we can use to get through situations like this. So it's been good.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing a vertical update. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I dive into vertical, so for just to kind of level set, I want to start by kind of stating, why does Infor exist as a business? There are some bigger companies in the market that serve similar needs for customers. So what does Infor do differently? So Infor's thesis from the get-go was that if you build a single engine, or call it an ERP, that serves every single vertical on the planet, that is, creates tremendous complexity in the engine because it's trying to cater to 20 plus economic sectors in the world. And on top of that, it also creates a scenario where to make it fit for any particular industry, you have to actually have a major effort to sort of tailor it, customize it to make it fit for any particular organization. So that the thesis behind Infor was that if we actually are able to create a global company, but then create engines that only serve adjacent industries that have some commonality, that would be a better way to go to serve the customers, because we can go deeper, and the software will be leaner, so easier to implement, and so on. That is the thesis behind why Infor was created as an organization. So that led to, in the initial phase of Infor, acquisition of number of assets that served specific industries like discrete manufacturing or in healthcare and so on. That was kind of the first phase of Infor. Then we reached about 2010, 2011 timeframe when Charles Phillips came over as the CEO. That, I would say, began the second phase of Infor, where we really took stock of what we have, and then decided to launch a major innovation phase where, using the IP, the design expertise, and the people we have in the organization, wanted to launch as if we are starting a brand new cloud company that focused on specific industries and built out solutions that serve those industries to an extent end to end. And that phase, we made a decision at that point that if we are really an application software provider, not infrastructure provider, our core competence doesn't, really is not in that area. So we made a bet on AWS at that point as the hyperscaler we're going to bet on, and leverage their R&D for our innovation to leapfrog. And then we decided that we're going to focus primarily in manufacturing and distribution and in service industries. That's really where bulk of Infor's revenue comes from. Sure. So we launched at that point a few platforms. So at this point, let me share a screen with you to sort of at least have a reference point. So let me share the screen. Okay. Can you confirm you're able to see my slide?
I can see a slide if you want to. Yep, even better. Thank you.
Okay. So at that point in time, we had previous assets, like for example, we acquired Lawson prior to this phase that brought us a whole lot of healthcare expertise, public sector expertise. We had bought through that first phase of Infor's journey, what used to be called Bond, which eventually became Airline. So we acquired that asset, and then Lawson also had acquired Intentia, which brought us M3. So the fundamentals I'll stick with the enterprise platforms, not the mid-market for this conversation. So we focused what used to be Bond and LN as our core engine that we want to build from scratch in the brand new technology, cloud native, that focused only on discrete manufacturing. And as you can see here, with M3 just for process manufacturing and distribution, and then the FSM, or finance and supply management, and HCM into service industries, but primarily healthcare and public sector. So the rationale behind this was that if you think about discrete manufacturing, the markets we serve that you see on the slide, they either have complex supply chain or have complex products. And typically, in many cases, they do project-based manufacturing, like you're making an aircraft, a fleet for the Royal Air Force or Saudi Air Force. That typically is milestone-based, project-based. The backbone that supports these industries is built for that. So it handles really complex products, complex configurations and project-based, milestone-based billing. So we focus that only for those industries: industrial manufacturing, aerospace and defense, high-tech, and automotive. If you contrast that to M3's fundamental architectural capabilities, that it handles what I would call attribute-based SKUs really well. So if you think about food and beverage, you measure butterfat content when you buy milk. You have potency. If you have fashion, you have size, fit, color. So attribute-based SKUs is something that it is natively in its architecture built to handle. And because of the industries it serves, it also has a strong distribution backbone because of seasonality or shelf life. So that's why that engine is focused on M3. Those industries are based on M3. And then in the service industries, this product, clearly there's no manufacturing there, but in those industries, you have requirements like grant accounting or grant management. You also have integration in healthcare and clinical systems. The way that those industries operate is very different than these two other industries I just talked about. So we focus these three enterprise platforms to go after those industries. That is fundamentally why we think we can serve industries deeply and with more capabilities, with less to no customizations, perhaps better than the alternative. So these core engines obviously support the core business processes that typically you expect an ERP to do. But then we have what used to be like, if you bought an expense management system, you bought an asset management system, you bought an HCM, all of these things sort of touch the ERP, but then it creates a lot more capability for the organization to handle different things. Now, there are two ways to do it. You can be a $100 billion company, which those kind of organizations have the wherewithal to get these things pieced together and deliver the value to their users. Our view was that if those things, not that the customer needs to buy everything from Infor, but if they do, to the extent they do, what we wanted to do was to bring these as part of the extension of what we call the industry cloud, and it goes beyond the ERP, fully deeply integrated into the business processes, bringing data together, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So essentially, push the integration problem to the to the supplier of the software, which is Infor, than push it to the customer to own it and maintain it for forever. So we took the core capabilities of some of these edge apps that are relevant for certain industries, like product lifecycle management. We have one for the process and distribution industries that understands formulation, understands guidelines and label restrictions that you have. So taking products like that, and then taking the core engine that I just talked about, and then creating what we call this industry cloud. So in this example, we have an aerospace and defense cloud that has the LN, the brand re-architected LN. That's another thing I just wanted to make sure that people understand, is that this is not the 25-year-old software. This was completely rewritten in the last 10 years, let's say, and with highly API centric, highly interoperably centric, and it's powered by science, as you see on the right. So it's built sort of in a native cloud architecture, in a multi-tenant deployment, so single instance running in an AWS farm supporting hundreds of customers. So taking that and taking the integration of these components that you see in the spokes that are relevant for this industry and bringing out an industry cloud that the customer can consume. Of course, the customer has choice. If, for example, for HCM, they use somebody else like Workday or SuccessFactors, that's okay. Customer has choice. So we created these in a way that it has an open architecture. So customer can still plug those components in, use some of the integrations kit that we are providing, but then make it easier for them to manage this multi-cloud deployment of solutions they're consuming, and still present a holistic business process for their users. So that's what this industry cloud is about. Let me pause here if you have any questions there.
No, keep going. I still want to come to the edge when it comes to industries, right? I mean, this is, like you say, API. You can use other, but I hear that from too many other ERP vendors. They're like, somebody else will do the vertical edges, and that's where the demand is, at least in my viewpoint. There's not enough edge applications in different industries. And so I keep asking, not just you, I'm asking every ERP vendor, why aren't you going deep into certain industries? Why do you expect others to build that for you? Okay, so anyways, I'm not being unfair to Infor. It's a question I'm asking every ERP vendor.
No, absolutely, it's a fair question. So, so the first aspect of that vertical specificity is what I'm at least trying to address is, for example, this component called configure price code, right? So most aerospace and defense manufacturers are facing, not like any other industries in discrete manufacturing, they are facing more personalization requirements, right? So what I supplied to Saudi Air Force versus the Royal Air Force may be totally different in terms of the configuration of the aircraft, and how you price, how you maintain it. So that's something very specific. So taking that and making it completely part of the business process is something that we want to take ownership of. Workforce management, same thing. Like, so if I have, you can of course buy.
Let's talk A&D, right?
Yeah.
Rolls-Royce has been moving to power by the hour for 50 years now, right? They don't sell an engine. Their CPQ is so complex. They have digital twins, they have CPQ that is very complex, they have SLA management that's very complex. How would you be able to help, not maybe a Rolls-Royce, but another engine manufacturer who wants to move to a similar model?
Yeah, so when first thing is, can I manage a configuration and allow for that, in this case, the engine to be maintained for the life of that engine. Once it leaves Rolls-Royce and it's with the customer, and you're able to maintain that for, the customer, maybe British Aerospace, who's an Infor customer, right? So, and that is foundationally how we support that. Then in the manufacturing topology, like you're talking about, I'm selling, consumption based in products. In that scenario, you're more on the consumption side. Once the engine's out the door, how are you able to maintain connectivity to that? So you know that the equipment is requiring some maintenance, or what configuration was put in there, and I have the right field service force ready to go and maintain that and build the customer that way, right? So not all of the capabilities may come from Infor. It may never come from Infor like that, but architecturally, if I support the fact that at any point in time, what's out in the field, what configuration is out there, what models in which this particular component is used, who are what capability is required to maintain that, what spare parts are required to maintain that, that's something that Infor can do.
Sure.
Right? So hopefully I'm answering the question. So that's how we, by componentizing the solution and having these capabilities, as the industry moves, we can't predict, no one has the crystal ball, how it will evolve. As it evolves, we are able to adjust and adapt to the new trends and new business processes using data, API, and capabilities we have. We can serve the industry better. Okay, so that's sort of the foundation of what that enterprise architecture is. And if I skip to how did we do that from a technical standpoint that helps serve industries better? This is, probably looks too technical, but the essence of it is that we created a solution that I said composable, and it is it's highly API centric, built on a common foundation that you've heard Infor folks use this term called Infor OS, Infor's operating service. So there is one set of services that serves these industry platforms. So there's one user experience, there's one federated security, one integration gateway, so on and so forth. And there's one place where you can collect data. So one of the things that we had to make a choice, you either go to a store which has both columnar and row store in the same data store, right? So like a hybrid store. And in that scenario, we need to have all of our applications sitting on top of that, which is typically hard to do because customer has, like I said, they have a heterogeneous environment. So we built an architecture that allows for near real-time capture of data. That data and the API can be used for automating a business process or optimizing a business process, which is what you see as Coleman. So we created this platform that not only allows Infor to innovate in a nimble fashion, but more importantly, allows for the customer to innovate as well, because their business process, what they have as their business transformation, may not necessarily match to your earlier point in terms of what we deliver as the industry suite. So this is a very important part of the Infor's architecture, that we have common services that are externalized from the core solution that allow for this composable solution deployment for the customer. Okay. Just to give you an idea, so what does that mean? So if I have the data lake, for example, all of these solutions on the left, including third-party apps, if the customer so chooses to do that, push data into the data lake. When I earlier on mentioned we made a bet on AWS. So rather than us reinventing things, we basically use Amazon's S3 as a foundation platform. And we use their Elasticsearch. We use several of those capabilities that AWS already provides, taking advantage of that and built our capabilities on top to capture data near real time in a verbose fashion and in a versioned fashion. So let me give you an example why this is hopefully is viewed innovative, right? If I have a business process, normal business process, like a purchasing, procure to pay business process, I create a PO requisition. the data lake is architected in such a way that the applications push data. When I create the requisition, you have a version 1. Somebody goes and approves it, you get a version 2. Somebody goes and makes a change, you get a version 3. And then eventually it gets on a purchase order, you get a version 4, so on and so forth. So by doing it that way, a lot of the organizations are trying to figure out, how can I bring efficiency into my business process? How can I start to automate some parts of the business process? In order to do that, there's this process mining, which is the industry is starting to sort of look at that and take advantage of that. In our case, why can't we build that as part of our foundation? Because we have this data captured in a verbose fashion, in a versioned manner, we should be able to peek into the data and see how many steps did it take for a business process to complete at this particular organization in this industry. Compare that to their average peer, and they're able to do that 7 steps less to complete the process. Why is that? So we should be able to go back to the customer and help them optimize their business processes. So data becomes the center for a lot of the innovation, and the data happens to be industry specific because the application is industry specific. So we feel like this is, as time goes on, the center of the universe becomes more the data lake and the capabilities that are built on the data lake versus the application itself, which is fundamentally this, we're focused on, I would say, 7 major industries, 7 verticals. 1 within discrete, industrial manufacturing, aerospace and defense. High tech is kind of goes with the aerospace and defense, and automotive. That's on the discrete side. On the process side, it's food and beverage, distribution, and fashion. And then in the service industries, it's healthcare and public sector. Those are the ones we are really focused on.
And it's good. And I like you didn't say 30 industries, right? You didn't say micro verticals. I like that.
Yeah, so once we get better and once we know how to do this really well and it resonates with delivering customer outcomes, doesn't mean that we won't add another vertical sometime down the road. But right now, we're just so very focused on these.